Howdy, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Talking Paranormal with the old man and his daughter. However, today I do not have the daughter. um, Here in Michigan, the weather's about ready to change. It's raining. So, with the rain, it affects her sinuses. So, she said that her voice was really raspy and stuff and all this kind of stuff. So, that's cool. So, I'm going solo today, and I know you all are sad about that, but that's the way it is. So, like I said, here in Michigan, it's it's what was the temperature is 66 degrees and rain. But you know what? That's okay. Hey, Doc Fail, welcome. I'm going solo today, so if I don't see anybody in the live chat chatting, I apologize for that. I usually have Jesse doing that for me. So today, actually, yesterday we had a wedding. It worked out well. Uh, got home late for us old people, but all in all, it was a pretty good day yesterday. So a little sleep deprived. I'm usually in bed early, but it is what it is. So today, I figured I'm going to touch on a subject that people may or may not believe or may not understand, and it's basically this.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Now, that was a line from the classic Night of the Living Dead that came out in 1968, and it's a cult classic now. So basically, that that little bit there was in the beginning of the movie, and it was the zombies were coming to get them. So in real life, paranormal field, I guess you want to say, it's possible for spirits that well, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. For people that have passed before us, family members, even pets for that matter, it is possible, and it does happen for them to greet you as you cross over into the other world. And by other world, again, paranormal field is not an expert situation. Not everyone does not know everything there is to know about the paranormal. And if they tell you they're a paranormal expert, they're lying and they're full of BS. So it is possible for spirits to come over and greet you as you cross over. And in theory, the ongoing, as far as I understand, the ongoing idea is this: is you have two planes of existence. You have our plane of existence, which is the physical plane of existence, and you have the spiritual plane of existence, which is basically the other side, crossing over to the other side. So, is it possible for spirits to greet you? And again, I don't know why I'm saying spirits for. Is it possible for people that have passed before you to greet you as you cross over? And I do believe it is. We have had experiences during investigations, and personally, myself, I have not witnessed it firsthand, but I do have, I guess, firsthand knowledge, I guess, if you want to call it that. Um, or what is it, what we would call it, the third party, third party knowledge of this. So let me start out by basically we had a investigation years ago, and it was in Troy, and this I guess the homeowner was experiencing activity in his house. So we went over there. Hi, Andrew, welcome back. And we did investigation, and again, I don't mention people's names unless I get prior approval, obviously. So we had our friend who is a medium, and we were doing an investigation, and we have we came to the conclusion that the one of the past homeowners, like years and years and years in the past, uh, basically, like a lot of places in Michigan and all over the actual country, it wasn't built up as bad as it is now. I mean, nowadays you can't, it's like here in Lansing, you used to be able to go to Grand Ledge. which is about, oh God, I don't know. I'm really bad with miles. Uh, 3 or 4 miles away, maybe. And there was nothing but farmland, open farmland. That was it. Now you go and they have out there halfway between. You got Walmart and you got Hobby Lobby, and you got the brand new Olive Garden, and they're still building stuff. It's like you can almost drive between Lansing and Grand Ledge and not hit open land anymore. So back in the day, we determined that the farmer or the person, I'm sorry, that owned the land, he was a farmer and he was out farming. And we got this, talking to the spirits. I'm a medium, the wife's a medium, our friend is a medium, and we were communicating with this spirit that was, and I hate the word haunting, because they're not really, the spirits are not really haunting anything. They're just there for some reason, and either be a residual haunting or a classic haunting. They're still there. And I find it almost like an insult when someone says, "Oh, my house is haunted." Okay, 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 okay. Okay. Why is it haunted? Okay, stuff's happening. Okay, things are moving. You're hearing voices. You're seeing shadows. Does that really constitute being haunted? Or is that, and this might be a future podcast, or is that basically just the spirit that's confined or stuck to that house or that property? Think about this for a second. What if he's just living his life that he did, or he or she, I'm not a sexist, that they're living their life that they did when they were alive. And we just happen to be in the same spot to see this. I know that's kind of like, holy shit, dude, that's kind of deep. But if you think about it for a second, and again, I don't like the word haunting, but anyways, this spirit in this house in Troy, we determine through communicate, and whether or not you believe in communicating with the spirits as a medium or a psychic, that's your total belief, dude. Or again, dudettes. I'm not, whatever. And it's I forgot my train of thought. I was looking at the chat for a second. And that's why I'm sorry if I don't answer the chat, because then I get like lost and oh, pretty colors, and I get like sidetracked. So we determined through communicating with the spirit that he was a farmer when it was open land, and he had stopped for lunch, and his wife had brought out lunch for him. So he was eating lunch under a tree. And he unfortunately sat in a nest of rattlesnakes, and he was bit and he passed away. So we determined, that's what was causing, again, the air quotes, the haunting. Well, our friend, she was like, okay, I'm sensing, and I have a picture of that. And if I can find that picture, I will post it on our Facebook page. Um, I'm not for sure where it's at. I'm very, very bad at organization for this kind of stuff. So if I find it today, I will, or in the next couple of days, I will post it. And she said that there's a bright light with family members waiting to help you cross over. And she asked the spirit if he could see this light, and he goes, yes. And when that happened, I did take a picture, and you could see in the picture, not a bright, 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 bright light, but a bright light. And she said there are people in there, and you'll see people in that light, family members that are there to help you cross over. Even though he has been passed for years, he was still confined because he didn't. I assume he did not know where to actually go, and he was stuck there for years. Again, I'm bad with years. I'm bad with miles. But if I remember, he had been passed for like 30 or 40 years, if I recall correctly. So even after all that time, he was still stuck here on the physical plane. And he goes, yes. He obviously he didn't come up and say yes, but through our friend, he said that he did see family members that were in that light. So our friend told him to go into the light. Your family members will help you cross over, properly cross over. And he did. And our friend goes, he now has crossed over. He is gone. I took a picture, no light at all, none whatsoever. So that is one of my personal experiences. Now I will talk about some of the things that I have heard secondhand that I heard secondhand from family members. So I'm pretty sure I can rely on them and is very trustworthy. They have no reason to lie to me. And one of the other things that I can relate was my wife's friend. Her oh goodness, was it her grandmother? I think it was her grandmother was in hospice, if I remember correctly, and she was telling my wife's friend that make them stop. And she's like, "What do you mean make them stop?" And she goes, "Every night I'm seeing people coming into my room and they won't leave me alone. Just they won't leave me alone." And this had gone on for like 3 or 4 days. And my wife's friend, told us that story. And then shortly thereafter, like after 3 or 4 days, our that person passed away. So again, credible credible evidence, I guess you'd say, that they do come and take you away or help you cross over. Now they can also come to you in your dreams. So that's a different podcast, I guess. But it is possible. And Brenda said, my wife Brenda said that I think her grandparents, well, her family is from Texas, originally. Well, they're still there. There are some, cousins and aunts and stuff still there. And they said, and she would tell stories about her grandfather or grandmother, either one. I don't recall. It's not important. Would sit out, and they had a ranch, and they would be sitting out on their front porch, and either her grandmother or her grandfather, again, it's not important. Well, I mean, it's important, but it's not important who was, seeing this. And she would have like full blown, or he would have full blown conversations on the front porch. And everyone in the family thought, "Oh God, they're going crazy, going loco," and she's out there someplace. But shortly after that, she passed away too. So again, you have a story where people are talking to people that you can't see, you know, but and then they cross over shortly thereafter. And you see a lot of TV shows too. We follow. I mean, I'm sorry, we don't follow. I don't really follow a lot of stuff. Um, I don't really have to. I'm very skeptical of other people's evidence unless I see it, firsthand myself. Um, but we follow like oh God, haunted hospitals, night shift, um, my haunted story, uh, ghost ruined my life, whatever. There's a whole crap load of them out there. Some only last, one season, couple seasons. One only lasted like 4 shows because it was that bad. But a lot of these stories are when they see, like, hospital people see things, and shortly thereafter, their patients pass away. Even though they were improving, they still passed away. Now, one and I won't say who it was, but one of our family members was in hospice, here in town, and doing what we do. I mean, we are paranormal investigators. It would be remiss for us not to ask. So we asked the hospice nurses, and there's more than one nurse, if they've, just out of the blue, so out of curiosity, do you ever see things, or hear things in, here, since this is where people come to pass away? And they go, "Oh yeah." She go, and she goes, what, one of them said, "Yeah." She goes, we hear there's this one room that we always hear chairs being moved and conversations, and in the same room, we see shadows and stuff, and it'd be really I mean, I understand it's a touchy subject, but it would be I mean, that hospital is no longer a hospital. A couple years ago, they built a new one off the highway, and that's where everything is at now. But it would be cool, and I don't mean cool in a morbid sense of the word, but it's like it'd be cool to investigate. Well, I think hospice is still standing over here to investigate it. Just if there is spirits they're stuck to help them cross over. I think, and again, I'm not trying to be, morbid or, freak, but I think that would be freaking cool to be able to do that just to help spirits cross over and to investigate. And like I have mentioned, I think in a previous podcast, we had done an investigation in Ohio. It was Lorain, Ohio. It was St. Joseph's Hospital. And it had been closed for a couple years, and some group took it over, and they were offering tours, which was really freaking cool. And we actually did go there, and we didn't even touch like half, not even half, crap, not even a quarter of the hospital. We went to hospice, we went to ICU, we were in the emergency room, we were in maternity, in the psych ward, and that's all that we got to freaking see. And not because every place else was closed down it was because we didn't have freaking time, you know? So and some of the stuff that we got and I am going someplace with this, trust me, I'm not rambling on. For once, I'm not rambling on. We picked up some EVPs over in the hospital, in one in, Lorain, Ohio. We got a just before we got done with the investigation, we got a scream in the emergency room. And I'll see if I can post that too. I do have that. I know maybe where that's at. Oh, I think it's on a external hard drive. I have two external hard drives that we had from other computers that have stuff on them. So I'm pretty sure I know where that's at. So I will post that. But yeah, so and then up in the psych ward, we had voices too, and I won't post all of those, because we had, like, 5 or 6 EVPs, and some of them are kind of hard to hear, but I will post them. And let me write that down. I do have a pen and paper here, and I do forget. I'm getting old. So post pic from St. Joseph Hospital. Okay, I have that written down now, and I probably will still forget. So just from our experiences we did, catch some paranormal activity in this hospital. So if this hospital, which was a hospital, and when they had the hospice and all that kind of stuff, if there's still spirits, if you will, trapped there, damn well there's some trapped over here in the old hospital where that is basically closed now. So yeah, Andrew, I'm sorry, bud. I'm not taking any phone calls today just because I'm alone here today. Our daughter isn't here to help manage everything, so I apologize for that. Next week she should be back. Um, I have I kind of like have a agenda today, and I don't want to get off track of that a little bit. So I apologize for that. Thank you for trying to call in. Um, Hopefully she's back here a week from today, and we can take calls then. So thank you for your understanding. So like I said, if St. Joseph's in Ohio has all of this activity still, and that this place over here has it too. Okay. So again, I would love to go over there and investigate that, but I know that's not going to happen. Touchy, I understand. So let me touch on some of the things that I know firsthand, or I guess, third party firsthand. So years ago, when our daughter, she was not actually born yet, and my grandma was in the hospital and she had cancer, and she was out of it. She was drugged up, and she was just out of it. She wasn't coherent. She wasn't awake, anything. she had no outside knowledge, I guess, of what was happening other than in the hospital room. And my grandpa told me, and our daughter had just been born, and my grandfather said that he was in the room with her, and all of a sudden she just like woke up, dead sober, and said Brad and Brenda had a baby girl. Then she went back out again. I mean, how is that possible? And I know that this doesn't have to anything to do with spirits coming or people coming to help you cross over, but it does make you think if she was out of it. Like, I mean, she was out of it. She wasn't reading the papers because the actual birth was announced in the paper. So it wasn't announced in the paper. Amanda Wimp, thank you for joining in. I'm running solo today. So I apologize if I don't see everybody that comes in pops in. I'm trying to do everything at one time, man. It's not right. I'm just a kid. So yeah, but it makes you wonder, how did she find out? Because we didn't tell anybody yet, especially on my dad's side of the family. Uh, Honestly, we didn't tell anybody. Honestly, at that time she was just recently born. But like I said, she had no outside information coming in. She, wasn't reading the papers. This is way before the internet was as popular as it is now. So there was no physical way of her being able to know that we had a baby girl. Just we hadn't told anybody yet, and I don't even think it was in the paper yet. So that always made me wonder, how did she get this information. So the other story that I have is I got two stories left. And this other one is unfortunately my grandfather, um, that his wife was in the hospital, grandma, and she had passed. Um, he was in the hospital also, and he also had cancer. Yeah, we have bad genes in her family. We got cancer and high blood pressure and all that crap. Um, so grandpa was in the hospital also, and he was again out of it also. And I won't name names for privacy issues, even though this happened what, 95, 96, 97, somewhere in that area. um it's still a touchy subject, per se. So my aunt and uncle was in the hospital room with an actual nurse in the hospital room, grandpa's hospital room. And my uncle was going down to the cafeteria, and he asked my aunt if you wanted anything to drink. And my aunt goes, "I'll take a cup of coffee." Okay, cool. So my uncle left, and then my uncle came back, however long it took him to go down to the cafeteria and stuff. He comes back up, and my aunt said, "You're not going to believe what happened." And he's like, "What happened?" So my aunt said that when he left, it was just her and the actual nurse. So there was two people that actually saw this, not just one person making up a story. And the nurse collaborated this story, so it did happen. So basically, they my aunt had said that my grandpa, like, again, he was out of it. He was on drugs, pain meds, I would assume it was. And all of a sudden, my aunt said, all of a sudden, my grandpa, he woke up, his eyes, opened up. And you know how it is when people are like in bed and they're trying to like sit up in bed. So that's what he was trying to do. He was trying, he was, and just like a second ago, literally a second ago, he was out of it, out cold. The pain meds had him knocked out. So he tried to push himself out of bed. And they're like, "What the hell's going on?" My aunt and the actual nurse, they looked at each other and they're like, "What is going on?" And he started to reach towards the end of his bed. And he's like, "Oh, look at all the people. look at all the people. Oh, there, and I'm not going to mention the name, but here is, you know what? I'll say the name, but I'll make up a name. Um, let's say Annie. Okay. Let's say Annie. Oh, look, there's so many. And this is my grandpa speaking, of course. He's like, oh, look at all the people. Oh, there's Annie. Annie was my aunt and uncle's daughter that passed away years before. So he mentioned her by name, Annie by name. And again, that's not her real name. Some names have been changed to protect the identity of innocent people. So I've always wanted to freaking say that too. And it's like on a crime show. The names and faces have been changed to protect the innocent. So I've always wanted to say that. So, anyways, so that's what it was. Is he's like, oh, all the people, and again, he's trying to reach. He's trying to at the same time get out of bed. He's reaching towards the corner, and my aunt and the actual nurse, they're like looking where he's pointing, and there's nothing but a freaking wall. So there's no way he's a TV that's on, a reflection of a TV, a mirror, and he's grandpa's misidentifying them as my aunt and the actual nurse. No, there was nothing there but a wall, a plain white hospital wall. But he was pointing in that direction, saying that people were coming to get him, or all not necessarily coming to get him, but all the people. Here's Annie, that has passed away years ago, and he's seeing all these, air quote people. And my aunt said that as soon as he reached out and he, said, Annie's name and a couple, oh, the beautiful people, he stopped. He leaned back in his bed and was out again. And my grandpa passed, I think 2 or 3 days later. So is it possible? And okay, I'm going to like touch on some things here. I've read, and again, this is not a expert field, okay? Excuse me. But I have read. Let me take a sip of my orange juice real fast. I'm sorry. Throat's getting a little scratchy. So I have read that it's actually your brain, the neurons, I think it was, is still firing in your brain. And that's what's making you see things, like this. Now, whether or not that's the case, I do not know. Okay. I do not know. I don't claim to know. That's just one theory that I have read, that your neurons, these are all, all the skeptics that want you not to believe that this is possible, because I think there's so much crap out here that we cannot explain. And they just find reasons to make these stories less credible. And I think this is one of those situations that they're making it less credible. But anyways, so they're saying that neurons are still shooting off in the brain, and that's what's making you see people and faces. And then once those neurons stop, shooting or firing off, that's when you stop seeing these people. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, grandpa's, from what he said, he, like I said, he was out 1 second, literally out 1 second, coherent the other second, and reaching for people. And he saw Annie, and Annie had passed away years ago. So again, yeah. So the other experience, and this is probably going to be a short podcast today because I don't really have a lot of stuff. Um, so this other one that happened just last month, a person close to the family passed away. And again, I'm not going to name any names or anything. But she passed away mid August, I believe it was, and she had cancer. And see, like I said, our family is just jinxed, dude. My mom's side had cancer, has cancer, the diabetes, high blood pressure, history of heart attacks. My dad's side of the family, cancer, blindness, I think. I'm sure high blood pressure. The only thing that we don't have is insanity. Or if we did have insanity, we show it off. We don't hide it. We show it on the front porch drinking a beer. Okay, that's just the way it freaking is. My family. I told my wife when we first met. We've been together for 32 years. We've been married for 30 years. I told her when we first started going out, I'm like, my family, my mom's side of the family is batshit crazy. And no, she's like, no, there's no way. After like 2 weeks of meeting them, she goes, you were right. I'm like, I told you they're batshit crazy. So, anyways, so the person passed away, and I almost said who it was, and I did not want to do that. So the person passed away of cancer, and it was, and I guess from my understanding, she had had a stroke. She had passed away Saturday morning, like at well, I was told 3:53, but the actual death certificate said 5:25, I believe it was. So there's a discrepancy there someplace in the time, but that's not important. So she had passed away on a Saturday morning, either 3-ish or 5-ish in the morning. Well, from my understanding, she had had a stroke on Wednesday. So, and that affected her speech, that affected, one side of her body, and she passed away, like, 3 days later. Well, the person that was with her when she passed, she said that okay, so she was in her room, and oh god, excuse me, now I got the hiccups from drinking the orange juice. So it was a bed. So basically, when you walked in, that person's bed was against the, wall. There was a dresser in the other so basically, I'm trying to, like, set the, scene here. So, if you walked into this person's room, straight ahead and it wasn't a very, very big room, but if you walked in, the bed was straight in front of you. If you looked to your right was a dresser, and if you look to your left between the bed and the wall was another dresser. So, this person was seated at the end of the bed in a chair. And the person that passed was in bed, obviously. And from my understanding, like I said, I wasn't there, but this is the story that I heard, and it came from a family. Even though we're batshit crazy on that side of the family, I still believe it because they would have no reason to lie to me. Well, maybe they do. Who knows? Right? Family, right? So this person that is in bed, oh God, excuse me, in bed, and she is obviously not getting better. She's, close to being passed. And all of a sudden she started to reach for the corner. So if that person's in bed, if we're in bed with that person, she was facing the dresser on the left-hand side of her, which would be the right-hand side of the person that was in the chair watching her. Okay. Confusing, I know. I don't give details out very well. So she started to reach for that one corner with her left side, which was still good. Her right side was paralyzed. Her left side was still good. And the person that was sitting in the chair, let's get I guess get not less confusing. Let's call the person sitting in the chair. Let's call her. I'm trying to think of a name. Let's call her. Shoot, I'm trying to think of a name. I can't think of any freaking names. Stacy. Let's Stacy. Okay. So Stacy is sitting in the chair watching this person in bed pointing towards the corner. Again, she looks, there's nobody freaking there, okay? Except for a dresser. The dresser's not talking, okay? Unless this person's on drugs in bed and she's on drugs, painkillers, I'm sure she was. And maybe she thought the freaking dresser was talking to her. I don't know. But this person in bed is reaching towards the corner. So Stacy asked her, is there anybody there? And again, she had had a stroke, so she couldn't really speak very well. It's like, like that. And then again, there's going to be, okay, so let's say that her husband, his name was John. So Stacy goes, is John there? And again, the mom couldn't understand what she said. And then she said, is it your brother? And again, I won't mention the name. Is it your brother? And again, she's still pointing. The person in bed is still pointing. And she blah, 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 blah. Is it mom and dad? Because my grandma and grandpa have, been long gone. And again, she's still pointing, but she's like, blah, 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 blah. And then she goes, okay, is it a certain person? And again, she's still pointing, but she's, blah, 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 blah. Couldn't understand what she said. And then after this, for about 3 or 4 minutes, this person put her arm down and passed away. So if that's not compelling enough evidence that she was not seeing somebody to come and help her cross over, I don't know what is. Again, unless it's but again, even if it is the neurons in your brain that is, firing stuff, why specific things? Or is it, and I know I'm getting, like, really, deep here. Or is it, you know how, like, when people pass away or they're about ready to pass away, let's say, they're in a car crash or something, and they go, "I literally saw my life flash before my eyes." And I'm sure we have all heard that many times. Is that what it is? Is the people that they're supposedly seeing, is that their friends and family? Is that their is that flashing before their eyes? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I mean, this is a deep subject. I am aware of this. This is a deep subject, but I don't know. I mean, we'll all be there one day, obviously. We will all be there one day. It will, whether or not you want to be or not, we will all be here one day. Guarantee you that. So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I wish I had an answer. I don't know. But just to, like, my grandfather, when he saw his granddaughter, "Oh, here's Annie," blah, blah, blah. Why Annie? Okay. My grandfather had lost, my grandma passed away, oh god, 6 or 7 years before grandpa did. They lost their son in the late '60s. My uncle that I do not remember whatsoever, and I wish I did. He was killed by a freaking drunk driver. That's why I don't have no tolerance for freaking drunk people that kill people, lock them up for their freaking life. I know that's harsh, but, whatever. So he has seen a lot of I mean, obviously a lot of people that has passed before grandpa did. His grandparents, like I said, my uncle, his wife. So why did he just specifically say Annie instead of my uncle, or my grandmother? Now here is the interesting. Okay, I just thought about this, and this is kind of freaky deaky kind of thing. At grandpa's funeral, okay, it was they had an easel of pictures in the front, of course, and his casket. And again, I'm a medium, whether or not you believe it, your choice. I know what I can do, your choice to believe or not. So it was a 2-day funeral, I believe. The first day was for, well, obviously family and friends. The second one, I want to say, was for friends only. And then the third day was when he was actually laid to rest. And he's laid to rest in Eureka Graveyard beside grandma. Their son, my uncle, is right there beside them too. If you cross the little path there, his parents, which is my great great parents, are there. And there's like McCulkas all over. That's our last name, McCulka, all over the freaking place in that graveyard. We own probably about 10 lots or plots, I guess, of that graveyard. So, anyways, to get back to Grandpa's funeral, he has specifically asked, or I guess specifically told people before he passed, I don't want music. And that's how Grandpa was. I don't want music. I don't want fuss. I don't want anything. Just a simple, a simple service. I don't want music. I don't want pictures. Nothing. Okay, just a simple service so people can come and Grandpa was like one of a kind, man. He 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 spoke his mind, okay? And I'll tell you a story about that. It was just makes me chuckle. It's like one time me and Brendan were going over there, and I think grandma was still alive. Yeah, yeah, grandma had to have been still alive, but she was, in pain, from the cancer and stuff, and she spent most of her time sleeping. So we came and visited her and grandpa at their house. And, grandma came out for a short time, and then she went back into her room, to sleep. And my uncle came with his new girlfriend, and she had a black eye, and that makes me chuckle. I'm sorry, this makes me chuckle thinking about this. And, I mean, that's the elephant in the room, right? She has a black eye, so, we're all thinking the same thing here, right? So and we're like, "Oh, yeah, whatever." So we're trying to make small talk, not trying to not trying to, like, focus on her black eye. And yes, eye doc fail, it was a black eye. And then grandpa, like I said, grandpa being grandpa, he goes, "What happened? He hit you?" And by he, his son, my uncle. So, "Oh, no, 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 no. I had a procedure done on my teeth, and the actual, dentist caused my black eye." Yeah, whatever, dude. But yeah, but this grandpa, I'll just say, "What happened? He hit you?" But that was grandpa, okay? He didn't care who you were, what the situation is. That's what it was. And that's how my family is, okay? And I have one more story that's not now I'll get back to where I was heading to with grandpa's funeral, but to tell you how my dad's side of the family is, we tell you what we are thinking. We don't sugarcoat shit. We tell you what we're thinking. My dad had passed away, and again, I'm really bad with years. It was pre-COVID, obviously. Uh, he passed away. Oh God, this is for the sake of me sitting here, not like what? Let's say 2015. He passed away. It was probably earlier than that, but anyways. And we're at a funeral home. We're at the actual gravesite. He had a service. He was cremated. His wife, which was my stepmom, she had passed away. They were in an accident. They were riding one of those Spider three-wheel bikes on the highway, and some 18-wheeler hit them. She was killed instantly, so she was cremated and put, in the, ground over there. Well, when I'm sorry, when my dad passed, they cremated him and put him to rest beside her, just the actual urn, obviously. So we're there, and my wife is Catholic. I wasn't growing up any religious at all, none. Well, my dad's side of the family is not very Catholic. They're not like, full blown Catholics, but they were Catholics. So there was, the actual father and all, and my aunts, my uncles, and friends of him were there at the actual gravesite service. And my uncle, who I will not name, like I said, I don't want to embarrass, even though he passed away last year, but I don't want to, like, get, whatever. Um, so after, the actual father, he said, some words and the prayer and stuff, all that kind of stuff. And we had that, like, awkward silence, and it's like, okay, are we done? Do we go? There was that awkward silence, and finally, my uncle, who passed away last year, he goes, "Is this shit done?" And my aunt, she goes, "Yes, name, this stuff is done." And then we all laughed. But again, we're all sitting there thinking it, but my uncle says, "Is this shit done?" So, yeah, that's how my family is on my dad's side of the family. They we tell you how we feel, there's no sugarcoating. So anyways, to get back to grandpa's funeral, and again, he explicitly said, "I don't want any music, I don't want any pictures, I want it simple." So so basically, the 2 days that the easel was up there with, a poster board with all the, pictures and stuff was up there. So, l let's say, for example, the funeral was on Monday and Tuesday, okay? And then Wednesday was the funeral with, the services, and then we went to the actual graveyard, and he was laid to rest there also, okay? So, Monday and Tuesday, the easel was fine. It didn't move, nothing whatsoever. The 3rd day, Wednesday, when after the service, he was, the casket was closed, put in a hearse, and taken to the actual graveyard. That picture board, the easel picture board, I'm sorry, the poster board that had that had all the pictures on it that was sitting on the easel, it fell over. 2 days it sat there, didn't move an inch. The third day, right before we closed the casket, that poster board fell over with all the pictures. So I'm thinking that was grandpa showing his displeasure that this had happened. That he explicitly said, "No pictures. I don't want pictures." Maybe it's a combination of the music and the pictures, but he's like, "I don't want pictures." And it fell over. But one other thing too is when the father was giving his, not speech, I don't want to make it sound trivial, but he was, speaking, about, grandpa and his life and all this kind of stuff. I closed my eyes and I'm like, okay, grandma, whatever, if you're here, come to me. And that's the best way that I can like get spirits to come into me is I close my eyes. And I swear to God, this is, firsthand knowledge. I actually saw this when I closed my eyes, I saw, the so-called quote, quote, tunnel of life or tunnel that you see of light when you have a near death experience. I saw that tunnel. And I saw my grandma and my uncle who had passed away in the late 60s of a car crash by a drunk driver. They were walking hand in hand towards me. And so in my, in my mind, I see them walking towards me. And they came to the end of this tunnel. They smiled at me and went back into the tunnel, and that was it. So I do have one other thing to say about this, though, is when my uncle passed away last April, and and I touched by I think when Jesse was here with us, the I think 2 or 3 podcasts ago we had a questions and answer period that she asked questions and stuff, and one of it was if you're a medium or a psychic, you have a third eye or in your mind's eye. And I think this, and I'm pretty sure this is where I saw this. My uncle's casket was still open, and I forget one of my cousins was up there, telling a story about my uncle. And in my mind's eye, because I know that they weren't there, because if they were there, everyone would have freaked the hell out. Okay. Um, I see them. Okay, I see. Okay, so this is going to be hard to do without naming names, but my grandpa and grandma were there, and they were okay. If my uncle's casket was right in front of me, to the right of me, which would have been to the foot of his casket, I saw, and let's go closest from the casket to the actual exit of the door of that room. So I saw my Uncle Luke. Oh shit. I'm sorry. I saw my uncle. You know what? It's probably okay. He's been passed for a long time. I slipped up and I'm doing live. I don't edit crap anyway. So whoopsie. And I told you it's gonna be hard to do this without naming names. Okay, so my uncle that passed from the car crash, he was there. My uncle that was in the casket was beside him. My dad was missing, but I know why that was. His wife was very controlling, and even in the spirit world, I'm thinking that she kept him from this. And then my grandfather and my grandmother, and I can tell you exactly what they were wearing. My grandma had on her usual dress with an apron. My grandpa had on he called them dungarees, which is basically blue jeans with a buttoned up shirt, a short sleeve buttoned up shirt, and he was smoking a pipe, which my grandma totally hated. So that was kind of his way of saying, "Look, I can smoke a pipe now." My uncle that passed away, he was in his leather jacket, blue jeans, and a white shirt. And my uncle that I accidentally named, but I think we're okay because that was, like I said, years ago, like over what, 50 years ago? No, shoot, more than that. Probably about 55 years ago that he has passed. So I think I'm okay there. And I'm not for sure if anyone from my family listens to the podcast, but anyways, I slipped. I apologize. He was there and he had on blue jeans, pant leg rolled up with white socks, and like they have them now, the Skechers slip-on shoes, and that's what he had on, but they were like black slip-on shoes. And he had a white t-shirt, and he had on, it was like a white shirt with blue designs on it. I don't know what the designs were. I couldn't see that clearly. And one of his sleeves was rolled up. And my uncle that was in the casket, had passed. He had a shit-eating grin on his face, and he had his arms around my uncle that had passed away from the actual car crash. Well, afterwards, we had like a reception, luncheon, I guess you would say, afterwards. And I asked my aunt, I'm like, okay, and they all know that I can see things and stuff like that. And I actually brought them comfort to Annie, that Annie was okay. And after Annie had passed. So, and I did not know this, but at our daughter's wedding, and I was not aware of this, um, my aunt and uncle told me, it was more my aunt, that my grandma that passed of cancer, her mom both had the ability to see the spirits. And I'm like, "What? No one told me, man, growing up. No one told me, that would've been kinda cool to find out." So supposedly it runs in my family, my dad's side of the family, that we can communicate with the spirits, see them and communicate with them. So that's cool. So I know I wasn't, like, going, "Loco, loco, loco," you know? So, and I asked them afterwards, and they're like, "Oh my god." She goes, my uncle who had just passed in the casket, and my uncle that passed from the car crash, they were like, they were brothers, obviously, but they were like the best friends. And that's how my uncle that had died in the car crash, how he would dress. And again, I remember him, but I was like, I want to say 3 when he passed, 3 or 4 when he passed, and I do not remember anything of him other than pictures that I have seen of him. Other than that, I don't remember him whatsoever, which is kind of a shame, but I wish I would have known him, growing up. But anyways, so yeah, so I saw them there, at my uncle's funeral. He was there, and basically my grandma and grandpa had three daughters and 3 sons. Well, now all 3 of their sons have passed away, and my 3, aunts are still obviously alive. But to see them there, in my mind's eye, because I know it was in my mind's eye, otherwise everyone would be freaking the hell out. So, I know they weren't there for everybody to see, but I did see them. So yeah, so that's basically the podcast for a day, is just basically, can they come and pick you up or, help you cross over? And I think I've given some good stories that I think gives that possibility. Now, this upcoming show, which is gonna be a week from today, which is gonna be what, the 28th? Yeah, the 28th. Good. Okay, gonna do something a little bit different. This might be like a 2 or 3-parter. I'm gonna talk in depth about what happened over in Bath, Michigan, back in the 1927, the Bath school bombing, disaster, whatever you wanna call it, where a school was blown up. 40, I always get this wrong, I wanna say 45 people were killed and 8 were children under 14. It happened, like I said, a long time ago, but it is paranormal because we have been there for investigations, and we've seen no fewer than 3 apparitions there, and other people have seen them, experiences there. So, well, Doc Fail, thank you very much for the kind words. I try. It's really hard sometimes to think of a topic and not sound like you're, excuse my pun, batshit crazy. I know there's a lot of like people here. Oh, you're a medium. You're nuts. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, when we started out doing our paranormal investigations, we were called freaks, kooks, all kinds of words like that. Which I didn't take personally. People just they don't understand. So I'm going to touch on. I thought I know the wife vehemently disagrees with me because it's not paranormal. But I think next week we're going to talk about what happened at Bath because I think it's important to remember the actual victims. And I'm not going to name who passed away, but to remember the victims, you need to keep the story alive. I really do. And I'm going to start writing a book here pretty soon. It's going to be my seventh book, I believe it is about Bath. But it's not going to be paranormal. It's going to be, the characters are going to be there. It's going to be from what I have read perspective. And I will take some, what's it called? Literature freedom or something, like that, where I'm going to plug in the holes of the story. I have read the books, and again, I'm no expert about Bath, but I know a lot about Bath. What happened and stuff. Um, but I think it's important. I know, like I said, the wife she totally disagrees with me. It's because it's not paranormal, but I think I need to have the podcast start out by that. So I'm thinking it's going to be like a one part on the history of Bath, and then the following week, which would be I can't go that high up. It'd be sometime in October, I guess it would be, because it'd be 28th. Yeah, I think like October 3rd, October 4th, whatever it is. I'm going to that podcast will be about our experiences there, like in-depth experiences. And I know Jesse, I almost knocked over my alien by reaching out. I know that she has some experiences over there in Bath. So yeah, so this upcoming week, a week from today will be about Bath, the history of Bath. What happened, because it's more than, who, there's, it's not like, okay, this happened, he did it, end the story. No, no, no. There's more to it. So I think this upcoming week will be a lead in, and it is still very interesting topic. It's not gonna be like, oh, this is boring as shit. No, it's gonna be interesting. So I think it's gonna be a part one leading up to part two, which part two will be our experiences there. Because we have had experiences there. We investigated a house across the street, had experiences there. So, yeah, like I said, I know the wife is gonna say, "Why did you do that for?" I don't care. I think it's important. And I'm gonna start the book eventually, and, the wife always asks me when I'm gonna start writing about Bath because I do have ideas about Bath, but in my other books that I have written, if I am forced to sit down and write, it don't work. So I need to be I need to have like the not motivation, I guess. I need more like the push maybe, I guess, to sit down and write because if not, it don't get done. I sit here and like, okay, well, I can check this real fast. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So anyways, I'm through rambling on. So that was the topic of this podcast was, do people come and see you or help you cross over? And I think, yeah, from the experiences that I had, I think that is highly possible, and more than likely, it does happen. So, thank you all for listening. Andrew, thank you for joining in. Again, if you want to call in this upcoming week, Jesse should be back, and yeah, I have a little bit more, more help. I Doc Fail, thank you again for coming in, and as always, stay away from the light, and and more importantly, you have to be more afraid of the living than you do of the dead. So, with that being said, until we meet back here a week from today,
I'm sorry, but the person you called has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Goodbye.